Welcome to Bet Parx Saturday, live from the Sportsbook here at Parx Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Jeff Skaversky, taking you from 12 to 2. My producer today, Julia Hoff. We have a lot to get to. Of course, dominating the news this week is the A.J. Brown saga. And can we please put this to bed, barring something happening, which I don't think it will, but just put this to bed. The overreaction, the conversation has become annoying over A.J. Brown. I don't understand just how this has dominated the news over the last month or so, and even this week at the NFL Combine. At no point has anyone said that he doesn't want to be here. At no point has he demanded a trade. And at no point have the Eagles said that they don't want him here and, they'll likely move on. In fact, they have said the complete opposite. AJ said he loves Philadelphia. Philly's home. Nick Sirianni says he's a great football player. They want great football players here. And they envision him in this offense with Sean Mannion. Howie Roseman has said he's not in the business of getting rid of great players, and AJ's a great player. And he went in detail about how Sean Mannion gave them cut-ups of how they can utilize AJ Brown. The Eagles are a better football team with AJ Brown. I get it. His numbers and things like that have gone backwards, but we all know there's a reason for that. Obviously, he's not going to get better with age, but worst case scenario is that A.J. Brown is a decoy for Devontae Smith. Now, look, that's not the case, but I don't think A.J. Brown is going anywhere. I mean, he has a $40 million cap hit if the Eagles trade him before June 1st. So, look, can we just please put this to bed? It has been incredibly annoying, this A.J. Brown talk. I get it. His passive-aggressive social media posts have lit the match. They always do, especially in today's NFL and social media and all this extra airtime that everybody has on social media and TV and radio and the podcasts. That one cryptic tweet or post turns into, a 45-day just debate back and forth that snowballs and balloons and morphs into its own life. But to think he's gone, I think, is naive and ridiculous and feeding this beast. Let's take a breath. A.J. Brown is a great player. Not a good player, a great player. Is he replaceable? Of course he is. I mean, look, everybody is replaceable in any walk of life. But the Eagles, again, are not in the business of getting rid of great players. And A.J. Brown is still a great player who comes with a massive contract and a massive cap hit. Even if they were to trade him after June 1st, it is still, I think, a little bit under $20 million. Now, could they absorb it? Could they figure it out? Of course they can. Howie Roseman and his guys are, they're IRS CPA level wizards when it comes to the salary cap. But Roseman has said all along, they want A.J. Brown here. Nick Sirianni has said they want A.J. Brown here. A.J. has called Philadelphia home, and he wants to be here. Is A.J. frustrated? Of course he is. They were all frustrated. And does he put it out there maybe a little bit more than needs to be? Sure. But at toward the end of the season, you saw him just kind of back off that. And he didn't talk as much because he wears his emotions on his sleeve, which as Philadelphians we love, right? But can't we just take this at face value that A.J. wants to be here and the Eagles want him here? Of course they're going to listen to offers. Howie Roseman said all along he's going to listen to anything and everything, and that's for every player on the roster. He'd be an idiot to not listen. Of course Howie's going to listen to everything. But can we not take all this at face value and stop being this Scooby-Doo gang trying to figure out this unsolved mystery that's just a mere misunderstanding or misinterpretation? I don't think A.J. Brown wants to go anywhere. I really don't. Is he frustrated? Of course he is. Everybody was frustrated the way last season went. And Kevin Patullo ultimately lost his job. But the Eagles are going to listen. They'd be dumb not to. I just don't think A.J. Brown's going anywhere. And the fact that this is going on and on and on, it's absurd. Howie Roseman's M.O. has always been, and he has said it repeatedly, when a great player becomes available, he is going to listen. And he's going to make a call. They checked on Myles Garrett. They have checked on Max Crosby. They were checking in, and I have heard were making and trying to make a significant offer to the Dallas Cowboys to get Micah Parsons here. Didn't work out. Maybe it never would have worked out because the Cowboys, they really want to trade their stud player inside the NFC East. But my point in all of this is that Howie Roseman has said it. Anytime that there is a big player available, he's going to try to see if they can improve the football team. He's in the business of making this team better. And the Eagles are in a Super Bowl window for multiple years here where they can go out and win multiple Super Bowls. And trading him, let's say, at the draft or before the draft, I don't think you're getting better. I just don't. Maybe you can get a first-round pick. Maybe not. But that's not making your team better today. I don't believe it, and I think they're a better team. And so listening, if you're Howie Roseman, isn't shopping. They're taking calls. Of course they are. And everyone was getting into, the agent was making a call or the agent was checking in on A.J. Brown's interest with other teams. That's the game. That's the normal game that goes on. And so all of that going on in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, that's what goes on all the time, to gauge interest. Okay, to do what's best for your client, to get your client more money or a better situation. But I'd be shocked if A.J. Brown's not on this football team. I just would. And maybe they will trade him. Maybe they will. But until something happens, can we just put this to bed, please? I just don't get the overreaction. Are we that bored that we just keep going on and on and on and on about A.J. Brown? And now here I am going on and on. But it's just been driving me nuts like all week, just hanging on every little word. And you've heard AJ say, I love Philadelphia. It's home. You've heard Howie Roseman say it. You've heard Nick Sirianni say it. So what are we trying to break down and what are we pulling out? And, there's been people going, AJ, you didn't talk about the Eagles on a podcast with Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski. So what? So what? And so what? He has a relationship with Mike Vrabel. We're going to get into that in a second. But at no point has Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni given you the idea that they're going to get rid of him. Now, some people are saying, well, they're just trying to boost him up at the NFL Combine. And I'm like, okay, can we stop with the conspiracy theories? And maybe that is a chess match. But when I listen to Howie and when I listen to Nick Sirianni at the NFL Combine this week, I don't hear anything that tells me that A.J. Brown is on the trading block. Let's listen to those two.
I think that at the end of the day, there's a lot of conversations in the offseason about players on your team, on other teams. That's really the job. That's the fun part about the offseason is the opportunities to improve your team, the opportunities to make trades. But at the end of the day, again, we're trying to get better. And it's hard to do that if you're just subtracting great players. We'll do whatever's in the best interest of our team to be better for this year and going forward. Anything that puts us in position that we think to potentially win another championship. So every decision will be made with that, no matter who the player is.
You want to try to bring back as many guys as you possibly can, as far as having good football players, good people around. And so obviously when you ask me this question, whether it be about Josh Sweat or whoever it may be, you always want your guys back. I think I've answered it pretty much the same way all the time. You don't win as many games as we've won together, and especially a guy like BG, and say, no. I mean, I think that's not going to say it's a ridiculous question, but of course you want guys back like that. And so I love the guys on our football team. Like I said, we've been through the highest of highs. We've been through lows together. And that's when you come together as a football team and as people, when you're going through the ups and downs together. And so, I love our team. And you name the guy, and I'm going to say, yeah, I want him back.
Yeah, you always try to make decisions in calm times. We do the same thing in the draft. We have a value for every player on the roster so that we don't get sideswiped on anything, that we understand what we would do. That doesn't mean we would trade them, but at the same time, we got to be open to listen on everything that we do here. That's what a lot of this week's about. That's what a lot of the first couple weeks of free agency is about. That doesn't mean there'll necessarily be action, but you got to be willing to listen. We'll do that during the draft as well and decide what's the best for the Philadelphia Eagles. At the end of the day, everything we do is what's best for the Philadelphia Eagles so that we can try to compete and hopefully win another championship.
Yeah, you're trying to get your guys as many targets as you possibly can that are big time playmakers. I think that's kind of been questions that you guys have asked me is like, hey, how come this guy didn't get as many targets, and how come he got too many targets, and there's only one football. And so we understand that that's part of our job, that if Devontae has 112 or 140, somebody else is going to have a little bit less. Then it's going to be why did he get more targets? And so we understand that's kind of the flow of how it goes. And you know how like last year Smitty was highly productive, but we ran 24, pardon me. We ran the crap out of the ball, right? And so I think it just all depends. Obviously, we'll do whatever we need to do to try to win each game. Getting Devontae Smith the ball and getting him targets is always going to be important, as long as he's an Eagle, to the success of our football team. And so, you know, it's just the way the season goes, the way the flow of a game goes. You know, it's important that he's seeing targets every game, because he does good things when he gets those things. So I don't ever want to say, hey, this is the number. He needs to have this many targets. He needs to be able to affect the game each game, and that number can change each game, each year based off of that.
So they're trying to get Devontae Smith the ball, and of course they're trying to get A.J. Brown the ball. And A.J. Brown, as I said, maybe his numbers go backwards, but it frees things up. And obviously this year is a bad example of everything that went on. Nothing was getting going. And Devontae Smith's numbers went down, and A.J. Brown's numbers went down. But Howie Roseman has said that Sean Mannion, the new offensive coordinator, has envisioned him in this offense. And you know, he said during an interview at the NFL Combine that, you know, they're going to try to find ways to get A.J. Brown the ball, and Mannion presented that to the Philadelphia Eagles. And look, until there's actual movement on A.J. Brown, not emojis and anonymous whispers and rumors and speculation on TV and radio and all that just noise and nonsense out there, enough's enough. Let it go. Can we please let this A.J. stuff go? You know, and you wonder, can they eat the cap hit? You know, we saw what they did with Carson Wentz a few years ago, which seemed insane. But that really has laid the groundwork for the Eagles to say, okay, they could absorb the cap hit. They could, but remember, you know, you have to pay Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. They're coming up. Howie, you know, his style has been awarding guys early, okay, awarding them early, as opposed to paying a premium maybe in a free agent year. So you have to pay your two stud corners. And it's a big decision, and I'm sure they're going to figure it out. I'm sure this can go in 1,000 directions. But at the end of the day, again, I do not believe the Eagles move A.J. Brown. I really don't. You know, when the Eagles traded for A.J. from the Tennessee Titans in, 2022, they acquired one of the most dominant receivers in football. And his first season proved it with the Eagles. And you know, his production, again, has gone backwards. But if you look at his numbers, if you look at what he has done, 2022, 88 yards per game, okay? And then if you look at these stats, right? I mean, he's had over 1,000 yards receiving in each of his 4 years. Obviously, when you look at the numbers, they have gone backwards. But, okay, they won a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl with him catching the ball 67 times. They can win a Super Bowl again with A.J. Brown doing this. It is a massive cap hit, and the numbers have gone backwards. And if you just look at the numbers and say, well, you know, he's a declining player, that's nonsense. You're not watching the games, and you don't know what's going on. So there's more things in the numbers. And if you look at the yards per game, they have gone backwards as well. But I would tell you that there is, and you know this, Eagles fans are so educated here, there's a reason for this. First of all, the Saquon Barkley factor. There's a reason why A.J. Brown's numbers are down. Then, of course, the issues with Kevin Patullo in the offense last year. And Kevin Patullo, fair or not, lost his job over it. So there's a reason for all of these declining numbers. But at this point, I don't know if he's a declining player. I don't know if that's fair. Did he have some drops last year? He wasn't his best in the NFL playoffs against the 49ers. Obviously, everyone knows that. Yes, the yards per game are down. Touchdowns have dropped from 11 to 7. The explosiveness, you know, maybe a little bit. But I don't think drastically where you go, I need to move on from this player. And who's going to be better than A.J. Brown And by the way, most importantly, can you get a player that's better than A.J. Brown? I don't think so. If you trade him to the Patriots, are you going to get a better player in return? I don't think so. But anyone who actually watches these Eagles games knows that this isn't A.J. Brown going backwards. It's just a product of how the Eagles have played football, and obviously not well offensively last year. The Super Bowl season, obviously, we're running through Saquon Barkley. So you have to really just look at this as a whole and say they are a better football team. The Super Bowl window is open. They are a better football team with A.J. Brown. And I don't think you're going to be able to find anyone out there and bring them to Philadelphia that is better. I just don't. And I think you have to give this a shot here with Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts. It's worked before. Look what they did in the Super Bowl season. When the Eagles had to ice games during that Super Bowl season, what did Jalen Hurts do? He found A.J. Brown, though, and he got him the ball. And that's how the Eagles iced multiple games during their Super Bowl season. That's just how it works. So to think that, okay, A.J. Brown has lost a step and he's done, I just don't think that's the case. I don't, and I wanted to see how dangerous and explosive he is here. I really do. I mean, the separation, I believe, is still there. The physicality is there. The hands can be better. But as a whole, A.J. Brown is a good football player. He's a great football player. And there has been speculation, okay, if they were to move A.J., where would he want to go? Where would he be happy? Where could the Eagles maybe get a boatload in return? One team, and it's among the favorites if he's not back with the Eagles, would be the New England Patriots to be reunited with Mike Vrabel, his coach with the Tennessee Titans. And, you know, Vrabel was not happy when the Titans traded A.J. Brown, was not happy about that. But what Vrabel said at the NFL Combine this week about A.J., people are speculating that, okay, that's going to lead to a trade. They have just a long-standing relationship, A.J. Brown and Mike Vrabel. That's okay. That's what goes on in the NFL. Guys are friends. And what A.J. Brown went personally with his mental health issues while with the Titans, that bonded. That was among the things that bonds Mike Vrabel and A.J. Brown. And Vrabel's admitted that he checks on A.J. And for anyone to have an issue with that, it's asinine. Because in the NFL, guys have relationships. And to think that Nick Sirianni is not checking in on guys that he's had on other teams is naive. It really is. And so I want you to listen to the comments from Mike Vrabel, what he said at the NFL Combine about A.J. Brown, and listen carefully, because people, I think, are taking this out of context, that this is tampering or any of that nonsense. Take a listen to Mike Vrabel.
I think the relationship with players, and specifically he asked about AJ, has meant a lot. I've watched him grow. I've watched him mature. I'm proud of him. Proud of the father that he is. I'm proud of the husband, and that has nothing to do with where he plays and where he played. So those are the things that are important. We reach out and text each other during the things that happen good to each other, and sometimes things don't go so well for the people that you're close with, and you text those as well. So it's a two-way street of support and reminders of what got us to where we are.
There you have it. Did Mike Vrabel say anything in there where you go, whoa, he's tampering, he's trying to land AJ Brown? No, of course not. We're just talking about him as a human being, as a person. And, Mike Vrabel got let go in Tennessee, and I'm sure AJ checked on him. And they have a relationship. So what? Like grow up. Like you may not have you may have friends that work for rival companies or rival businesses. So what? Like grow up. And that's the modern day professional sports, right? Where guys are friends with other guys on other teams. They have similar agents or similar interests, or they just have a bond. And I don't have an issue with Mike Vrabel said. He's just being a human being. But let's get the latest on this entire Eagles situation. The A.J. Brown stuff, how this offense could look under Sean Mannion. They're front and center all week in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine was PHLY Sports Eagles writer E.J. Smith. Fascinating conversation that we taped earlier this week as he just returned from the NFL Combine. And he gives really good insight about everything going on. And he kind of gauges the interest with AJ Brown, the temperature in the room, what could happen here with AJ? What could happen here with this Eagles offense and Jalen Hurts and everything going on? And of course, the big Eagles need this offseason. Let's listen to my conversation with EJ Smith. EJ Smith from PHLY Sports. You just got back from the NFL Combine. Obviously, a ton of buzz about the Birds. Let's start with the AJ Brown situation. We heard Howie Roseman talk. We heard Nick Sirianni talk. It sounds to me as if, okay, AJ Brown's going to be back. I don't see a scenario where they trade him. And even AJ at the Super Bowl said Philly's home and basically said he wants to come back. Is that the feeling that you have? What was the feeling out there? Because it seems like where there's some smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, to me, this situation became more clear in the last few days, which is to say that Howie Roseman has made it clear that they will listen to offers on AJ Brown. You know, they listen to offers on every player. Every player has a price, but I do think that that was a signal to the rest of the league that if you're going to make an offer for AJ Brown, you know, now is the time. So I don't know. I don't know how this situation is going to play out, but I do think that there is a world where the Eagles get the compensation that they're looking for AJ. I think it's going to be premium a premium pick, maybe multiple premium picks, but I think it's going to be a seller's market. Obviously, Mike Vrabel talked about AJ Brown in Indianapolis, and made some headlines with what he said, which was really not a lot, but I think it did kind of signal that there'd be a mutual interest there. So I still think there's a lot that needs to play out here. I think there's still every chance that AJ Brown is back in an Eagles uniform, because of the fact that it's going to take a lot to get him out of Philadelphia, but I don't think Howie Roseman really shut the door on that being a possibility that AJ is traded later in this offseason.
But I didn't hear anything from Howie that I haven't heard before about any player, right? I mean, look what he did with Carson Wentz. I don't think anybody saw that coming when they drafted Jalen Hurts. You're like, wait, what in the world is going on here? I don't see a scenario where, Howie Roseman is just trying to get rid of players. Some people, though, would say, okay, the other part of it is maybe they're just trying to beef him up and go, things behind the scenes weren't as bad as it's made out to be. And maybe they weren't, but there is the belief out there, and I don't believe it, but there is the belief out there that the Eagles are going, we're going to pump him up this week and do media and see what kind of offers we can get. And we don't want the distraction. We don't want this passive aggressive stuff on social media. What are your thoughts about that? Do you see that as a potential game of chess?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think Howie has been consistent in that he doesn't want to trade great players. He's not in the, his line this week has been, that they're in the business of adding, not subtracting. You don't want to trade a player as good as AJ Brown. And honestly, you're probably right. It's probably good that he's making a point of saying that because of AJ Brown being part of the audience here, right? AJ Brown is probably listening as keenly as anybody to hear what Howie Roseman has to say about these things. And I think the question about whether or not AJ Brown wants to be in Philadelphia is a legitimate question. I know that he is, well liked in the locker room. I think the distraction aspect of it, I think that there are, certain areas where it probably is a distraction, but AJ is pretty, well regarded in the Eagles locker room. It's not as much internal drama as external at times. So, again, I think
you don't say.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
You don't say working in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so I do think that there's an element of this where you need to be able to message to AJ as well. And I think if the world where AJ Brown is back with the Eagles, I do think you also probably needed to make this effort to see what you could get back, because it's a lot easier to go to AJ and say, there wasn't the market that we thought there was for you out there on the trade market. It's been reported that AJ Brown's agent has been, fielding offers or, I guess shopping for offers here. So, I think that probably is an important part of this process. Like if you're listening to us right now and you want AJ Brown back with the Eagles, I know it sounds strange, but these things are actually the way that it happened. So again, I could see it going either way. I'd probably guess that he's traded based off the way that the last week is gone. Yeah, I'd probably lean that way. But I mean,
but
again,
it's complicated.
Yeah, so from a salary cap perspective, it is complicated, but
it's $40 million.
Yeah, the dead cap hit would be $40 million. The Eagles have taken big dead cap hits before, especially for players. You mentioned Carson Wentz earlier, players that want to be elsewhere. Howie Roseman won't say this, but he does have a track record of trading players that don't want to be with the team anymore. But the operative thing here, is that with Hassan Reddick and Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz is another example. They got the compensation they were looking for in those deals. They had a market where Howie has been able to drive up the price for those players. And I think we don't know if that's going to play out with AJ Brown. The reason I guess that he will get traded is because I do think you look at the Baltimore Ravens, you look at the Buffalo Bills, you look at the New England Patriots, obviously with what Mike Vrabel said. I think there are enough teams where Howie's going to be able to whip up a market. And I think if they got a first round pick in this year's draft, I think that they probably would take that based off of some of the trades we've seen with receivers. DK Metcalf being the most recent example.
Yeah, they could have drafted him, by the way, right? So,
yeah.
But if you trade him after June 1st, it's I believe it's around 20 million of a dead cap. I mean,
right. So it splits over 2 years, so you can kind of offset it. You can prorate it, as the salary cap people would probably say. So, yeah, you get a little bit more relief this season. But the other thing to keep in mind with the dead cap thing is you take it on the chin this year, and it frees up money in future years. And if they do this deal, you're going to hear that. You're going to hear that it helped pay for, whether it's Jalen Carter's extension or Jordan Davis's extension, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. If they re-sign Jalen Phillips, I bet you that an AJ, if they trade AJ and they re-sign Jalen Phillips, I bet you'll hear they freed up money in future years that helped them, build the roster out. So, I understand like the sticker shock there, but I do think that there is an element to it because the Eagles are so good at navigating the salary cap where they're going to be able to navigate it.
The tough thing is that they're still in this window to win multiple Super Bowls, in my opinion. And whether AJ Brown, you look at his stats, and obviously they've declined. And listen, that's not all on AJ, right? I mean, there's a reason why the stats have declined. He's not getting the ball as much. And there's only one ball to go around. And also, too, the offense was brutal last year. So when you look at the situation, you have to say to yourself, okay, are they better or worse with AJ Brown? And so if you're going to trade him for draft picks, yeah, like, could you get a stud receiver in the draft? Maybe. But AJ Brown being on the field, even, I don't say as a decoy, but even AJ Brown, it does free up Devontae Smith. It does free up if Dallas Goedert's back. It does free up, a slot receiver. It frees up guys. So
he's got a gravity to him. Yeah.
Yeah. So aren't the Eagles?
Yeah.
So aren't the Eagles better with AJ Brown, despite some of the nonsense that maybe is going on? And maybe it's not all on AJ for this nonsense, but of course, a lot of it is for him, the cryptic tweets and social media posts. But they're a better team with AJ Brown, right?
Oh, for sure. He has a gravity about him. Even when he wasn't playing well last season, teams still have AJ Brown at the top of the list when they go into a game plan against the Eagles. So he definitely has an extreme value. And, you mentioned in the draft there, it's funny. I use the example, if they traded him for a first in this year's draft and then they draft somebody to replace him, I use the example Treylon Burks, which is a cautionary tale of the Tennessee Titans trading AJ Brown and we're trying to replace him with Treylon Burks. And honestly, that plan blowing up in their faces because Treylon Burks was not able to replace AJ Brown. You could use the inverse of the comparison and say Justin Jefferson replacing Stephon Diggs. So, but I think that shows you that these things are not guarantees if you're going to try and replace him in the draft. So that is a big projection to make. And, I do think that there is an argument, if I were in the Eagles front office and I was talking to AJ Brown, I would say, listen, Lane is coming back for another year. Landon Dickerson's coming back for another year. Vic Fangio, considered retirement. He's back. There's a sort of a sentiment around this year's Eagles team where it's like one last ride, right? It's one last chance for this version of the team. I think you're right that they have a championship window that's going to extend into future years. But this version of the team, it feels like there is some urgency to kind of give this, give it one more year of running, trying to make a Super Bowl run here. And I think that would be the case for AJ. I think, you say, we explored the trade market, didn't really yield what we wanted. Come back for another year. Let's try and win a Super Bowl. And then we will revisit this next offseason when it's a little bit easier to trade AJ. And again, everything, you kind of get another year for things to develop there. So no, I definitely think that that's the argument. The argument is for him to come back and try to compete for a Super Bowl again.
All right. Assuming he does come back, Howie Roseman said that Sean Mannion came up with a bunch of different plays and ways to get AJ Brown involved in cut-ups and different things like that. With AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts, How do you think this offense would look with A.J. Brown and Devontae and Jalen and Sean Mannion, really running the ship now?
Specifically with AJ, I think if he was settled, I think he would be one of the two biggest winners with the Sean Mannion hire. I think if you look at the types of receivers that are very successful in the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan type offenses, they are guys who have dynamic ability after the catch. They get those guys, on crossing routes over the middle of the field. They get the ball in their hands, and all of a sudden they have one guy to beat to take it to the end zone, to go for an explosive play there. So AJ is like really built for that type of offense. He is in that Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk mold. The Puka Nacua mode. I know Puka's a little bit smaller, but having those guys who are dynamic with the ball in their hands, that's huge. And AJ has the physicality for it. He's got the speed for it. Even after last season, I still think he is one of the most dangerous receivers in the league, and he would be a really an ideal fit for what you'd expect Sean Mannion to run.
Yeah, and as far as Devontae Smith,
Yeah.
when you look at what he can do in this, he's been fantastic. And AJ, like if you take a step back, AJ's been really good. I mean, he's been a really good receiver here. One of the best receivers in Eagles history to start. Just how dangerous overall as a receiving core can this group be?
Yeah, so being in Indianapolis, there's a lot of buzz around Devontae Smith right now. A lot of belief, that internal belief, guys in the building who think that Devontae Smith has not hit his ceiling in terms of what he's capable of doing production wise. And it's not necessarily about who he is as a player. It's about the opportunity that he's had in his career. I think that, again, there's an internal belief, like if Devontae Smith had a high volume of targets, if he was a 140, 150 target guy, like, players like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Puka Nacua, I think, Cooper Kupp in previous years as an example as well, if he had that level of opportunity, he'd be as productive as those players. And now he's going to be playing in a system that really does feature receivers like Devontae Smith. I think, you're going to see him use creatively in motion, to try and, get favorable matchups. I think they're going to try to really make him a big focal point of this offense. I think if you kind of flip it, we're talking about AJ, if you kind of flip it and make it an offense that's kind of built to feature Devontae, and then AJ is kind of your consistent piece on the outside, kind of the change up. I think that you could see that change this year if AJ is back. I think you could see Devontae as kind of the one that keeps him on schedule, and then AJ being kind of the big play, threat on the outside there. So yeah, like I said, people are really bullish on Devontae and what he will look like in Sean Mannion's offense.
The big piece to all of this is Jalen Hurts. Jalen, I heard say this multiple times last year about the challenges of having all these different offensive coordinators. Mannion, I believe, seventh offensive coordinator just with the Eagles, not including Oklahoma and Alabama. The challenge for Jalen Hurts here, and I heard Howie say that, that he's going to benefit from this and he can be successful in this. And obviously they don't hire Mannion without believing that, Hurts can play under this style. How do you think Jalen Hurts benefits, and what do you think this looks like for Jalen Hurts, on a day-to-day basis, a game-to-game basis?
Yeah, so I think the pocket movement that you see a lot with Kyle Shanahan offenses in particular, I think if that's something that they incorporate, it will be very good for Jalen Hurts. I think it's something that, honestly, in the last few years, I've always wondered why they didn't do it more. Jalen is so dynamic outside the pocket. He's so dynamic in space. And I think that element of a Kyle Shanahan offense will really favor Jalen. I think, also talking to people in Indianapolis, there's a certain level of curiosity on how Jalen will fit into other aspects of a Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay influence offense. Something I've heard about Sean Mannion a lot since the Eagles hired him is that footwork is going to be key for him. Timing and footwork in those systems is so important. And that's not necessarily something that Jalen has been, really precise with throughout his career. He's not necessarily, if you look at the types of quarterbacks that are often in these systems, it's the Jared Goffs of the world. It's the Brock Purdy's of the world, right? So it's not necessarily a knock on Jalen Hurts that he's not necessarily a seamless fit into what we've seen from these offenses. I mean, you've also seen examples like Jordan Love, and even I would say, Matthew Stafford, is another example here of somebody who is a little bit more dynamic. And obviously Matthew Stafford, not necessarily running, but just in what he's able to do out of structure from from the pocket. So I think that there's going to be an interest. I think there's a curiosity about the personnel that the Eagles have on offense and what it's going to look like in the system, because we haven't really seen the type of quarterback that Jalen is in this system. And I think it's going to give them some opportunities to mesh some different things together. The RPO game, the quarterback run game. I think that those are things that are really exciting to see how they fit in, because I think that, that's where Jalen can really be additive to what we've seen with these other quarterbacks in that system.
Yeah, obviously Sean Mannion is not the sexy hire, and he's not Mike McDaniel or Brian Dable. But do you believe that the Eagles are better today than they were, maybe 2 months ago with Sean Mannion?
I certainly think so. I think internally there is a energy around the fact that they kind of got some time away from the way that from last season and the way that it went. There was probably like an exacerbation by the end of the year with the coaching staff, I would say, because they were unable to figure it out offensively. So I think that's a big first part of it. And then I think that there's also an energy because there's an excitement around what Sean Mannion's bringing to the Eagles in terms of the scheme, the vision, and the change. The fact that it's going to look a lot different, and they're kind of undertaking this new overhaul. Obviously, there's a lot of new coaches in the building. They're young guys, they're energetic guys. I had one person tell me it kind of reminds them of when Nick Sirianni first came to Philadelphia with a young staff who all knew each other and all were hanging out after being at the facility all day. I definitely think there's an energy on the offensive side now because or a fresh energy, a new energy as they start to install this system.
Last few for you. I can't talk. Eagles' biggest need. So you're at the combine. What is their biggest need, and does it come in free agency? Is it Jalen Phillips? Is it Brandon Graham? What is their biggest need right now?
It's a good question. Man, I could go so many ways. Honestly, I probably would say tight end right now, and I wouldn't say Dallas Goedert. I would say I almost think it's time for them to just completely rebuild that room. And Howie Roseman,
it's a shame because last year was such a great tight end class.
Yeah. It's been surprising the last few years that Howie Roseman hasn't, usually at tight end, we've seen like succession planning years in advance, right? It's been Dallas Goedert taking over for Zach Ertz, Zach Ertz taking over for Chad Lewis. It's been this, or Brent Selleck, sorry.
Brent Selleck.
I went way back with Chad Lewis, but honestly, Brent Selleck for Chad Lewis, right? So you usually expect to see these guys kind of naturally, the successor is kind of in the waiting in the wings. And the Eagles didn't even have an undrafted rookie in last year. So I think that it's going to necessitate a big change. Howie Roseman talked about, needing more versatile skill sets in the tight end room than we've seen in years past. He's always prioritized receiving threats. I think that you're going to see more blocking tight ends, especially to accommodate Sean Mannion's system. It's a good year for tight end, for blocking tight ends in particular on day 2 and day 3 of the draft. At the top of the draft, you really only have Kenyon Sadiq as like a surefire first-round pick. I'm not sure he makes it to the Eagles at 23. I think that's going to be a big need for him. I think they're going to have to rebuild that room, reimagine that room, and I still think they need some dynamic play in that room. And it might be Dallas Goedert still. I don't want to discount that, but even if it is, I think they're going to have other moves to make at that position.
Last thing, Nick Sirianni, he got an A grade in the NFLPA polling from players. The perception on Nick Sirianni perhaps is not okay. He's not the Sean McVay, Mike LaFleur type. But is Nick Sirianni on the hot seat if the Eagles do not make a deep run next year, or do you think that's nonsense?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say it's nonsense. Hot seat, maybe lukewarm seat, right? I don't want to go too far here, but I do think there's an urgency for Nick to win, because especially because they've kind of been on this roller coaster. We know how 2023 went, and I think that is part of the equation that you evaluate this with. And you look at the offensive coordinator change, the fact that Jeff Stoutland left the organization this year. I do think that there is a lot of onus on Nick Sirianni to get this right next season. So I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny. It didn't surprise me that he got an A on the NFLPA grades because of the fact that the players love him. The players love to play for him, and that's who's voting on these. So, but that doesn't change the fact that, again, there is going to be an urgency surrounding Nick Sirianni next season to get this right. There's been a lot of changes, and I think he's been the author for a lot of these changes. So the results will be reflective on him.
All right, EJ Smith, great insight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
So a lot to unpack there with EJ Smith. And I would tell you, I don't think Nick Sirianni is on the hot seat. And Look, can anything happen? Of course. I mean, if they have a complete dud of a season next year, which I don't think will happen, yeah, of course. And the Eagles, they have walked away. Chip Kelly, and they've walked away from Doug Peterson a few years after winning a Super Bowl. So anything is possible. I just don't think it happens. I just don't. All right, Parx Casino. We are here outside the sports book in Ben Salem at Parx Casino, a great place that has, of course, headliners across the board, week in and week out, award-winning dining and award-winning entertainment. Just announced, Parx Casino is going to welcome the Gene Simmons Band July 24th, plus comedian Andrew Dice Clay on May 16th. Saturday, June 12th, All McCartney Live, a tribute to Sir Paul McCartney. Tickets still available for these headliners at Parx Casino. Saturday, March 14th, coming up just around the corner, comedian Tracy Morgan from SNL will be here. Friday, April 3rd, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members Cheap Trick take the stage. Saturday, April 18th, Grammy winner Melissa Etheridge will be here in Ben Salem. Thursday, May 14th, Jacob Dylan and the Wallflowers. Then in August 29th, Australian Pink Floyd. November 13th, Grand Funk Railroad. ParxCasino.com has your tickets. You can buy tickets there on the website. You must be 21 years old. The gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's turn our attention to the Philadelphia Phillies. Spring training about a month in here. One of the things that is bothering me about the Phillies, and I'm not bothered by this whole running it back thing. I think that is the move to make there. But the one issue I do have with the Phillies and Rob Thompson is this cleanup situation. Who's going to hit cleanup? It cannot be Alec Bohm. I'm sorry. And look, last year, Nick Castellanos hit cleanup the majority of the season last year. They need to figure this out. They really do. And you talk about the Phillies performing in October, and I really do believe it comes down to having, for the most part, a set lineup. And I think their lineup has just been, I'm not a fan of what this lineup has looked like as far as the order. First of all, Kyle Schwarber should not be your leadoff guy. It needs to go to Trey Turner. Trey Turner wins a batting title. He has some speed. Make Trey Turner your leadoff guy. Kyle Schwarber needs to be your cleanup guy, or your cleanup guy needs to be Adolis Garcia, or it needs to be JT Realmuto. I do not want to see Alec Bohm there. And I'm not one of these Alec Bohm haters. But you cannot have Alec Bohm as your four-hole hitter. Now, last year, here's what the Phillies did the majority of the time. Castellanos, 50 games, was batting cleanup. Realmuto, 43 times. Schwarber, 37. Bohm, 26. And Marsh and Kepler, 3 each. Way too many times for Alec Bohm. He just does not have the power. And I've seen some spring training lineups so far in the Grapefruit League play that have Alec Bohm hitting fourth. And I know they have split squad games and guys don't play every single day down there, but you got to have Kyle Schwarber as your cleanup hitter. If not, you're going to maybe bat him second. But you got to give Bryce Harper some more protection. And I don't think it's a big deal having lefty-lefty if you go Harper third and Schwarber fourth. But I cannot see Alec Bohm there. And I know he drives in RBIs and maybe he can hit for decent average. But he's not a power hitter. And I think you need power there. And if they can get Garcia back to the guy he was in 2023, he needs to be the guy there. Or it's got to be JT. But I would prefer to have Kyle Schwarber there. I really would. And we got to stop pretending that this is a minor tweak in this lineup. It's not. The Phillies have to get Alec Bohm out of there. I mean, Bohm just does not do damage. He just does not do the damage as a cleanup hitter. And I've seen them down there in spring training in those lineups. And if you go side by side of what Alec Bohm has done, what Adolis Garcia has done, and what JT Realmuto have done, in that four-hole spot, when you put them side by side since 2020, it's very clear. It's very clear. Garcia has your most pop. Second, JT Realmuto. And then Bohm. And so you can make the argument, okay, some of these numbers are similar, but not when you're talking about the cleanup hitter. Not when you're talking about who's going to belong in that four-hole spot behind Bryce Harper. And if you want Bryce Harper to see better pitches, you can't have Alec Bohm hitting behind him. You just can't. Alec Bohm is not this scary threat. But I'll tell you what, Kyle Schwarber is. And, Schwarber was asked, where do you want to hit? Where do you think you will hit? Here's what Schwarber said.
To be honest with you, no, it doesn't really matter. I'm just happy to be here and be hitting in this lineup. We always, at the end of the day, right? What he's trying to write down is going to be the best way for us to go out there and win a baseball game, score runs, and keeping constant pressure on people, right? So I'm sure I bet you there's going to be that conversation that's going to be coming soon, right? I'm sure we got a lot of things going on. We want to get everyone in camp, get everyone here, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of different conversations.
Yeah, and I don't love the different combinations. I have a set lineup. I want guys to come in and know where they belong. And I get they're professionals and they're doing it at the highest level and they have to make adjustments. But Bryce Harper is going to see better pitches if you have Kyle Schwarber behind him. And you still have a heck of a lineup if you're leading off with Trey Turner. I like Trey in the leadoff spot. And I wouldn't mind having Crawford at the 2-hole. You could also make the case so I don't put as much pressure on Crawford right out of the gate. Maybe I have him down in the lineup at 7th or 8th. Okay, fine. But please, Alec Bohm, I'm sorry, cannot be a cleanup hitter. All right, let's get the latest on everything going on here at Parx Casino. And, of course, the latest on some of the gambling lines. Let's bring in our gambling expert, Brad Feinberg. A great follow on X at Brad Best Bets. Brad, how's it going today?
Good, buddy, and I agree with everything you said, by the way. Literally, I just feel like we could be a boy band. We're in sync because I totally, every single thing you said, could be on the SAT test. It's not even an opinion. You're just right.
I just don't know why. I just don't know why we're even messing with it. I just don't.
Couldn't agree more.
I don't know why even we're tweaking with it. But in any event, I want to get to you on this Eagles situation. A lot has been made of the A.J. Brown situation.
Yeah, of course.
And I've seen some odds out there. Okay, A.J. Brown's next team. Obviously, the Eagles are favored, second the Patriots. Where do you think A.J. Brown ends up? Is it staying right here in Philadelphia? And is that a good bet, by the way, to bet that A.J. Brown's going to either stay here or go somewhere else like the Patriots?
Well, which team he goes to, Jeff? Yeah, I mean, listen, that you could bet this stuff. I wish I had that crystal ball, but I would set the odds above 50% that he's not on the team. Look, I'm going to tell you, Jeff, and again, we'll see if I'm right or not, but I can tell you this right now. I'll give everyone a little tidbit. The NFL season wins have just come out on Bet Parx. By the way, Jeff, here, what do you think they made it? Let's see how good you are. What did they make the Eagles season win total? It's be one of my biggest bets of the year.
I'm going to say 11 wins.
10.5. Because it's always a half in fairness to you. But I'm going to pound, and I mean pound the under. I think the Eagles are going to win 6 or 7 games. I think they're going to be the biggest disappointment in all of football this year. Yeah, I think we have seen the end of the greatness for the Eagles, in my opinion, at least. And I think they're going to come in last place in the division. Feel very strongly.
I got to follow up on that one. Why do you feel that way? I mean, that is a very strong
I felt like they were incredibly lucky with injuries last year for the most part, and they were still, to me, they have nothing offensively. They lose the offensive line coach, which I think is a big deal. I think they are going to trade A.J. Brown, and whatever they get from again, they will not get that kind of production. Okay, I don't care. They get they got a first round pick, which I don't think they would get, but maybe they do. But I don't think they will get that. But even if they did, no first round pick is coming in and playing as well as A.J. Brown. I don't like Jalen Hurts, Jeff. I just don't. And that's just my opinion. Doesn't make me right, but I don't think he's right now. I think he's the oldest. How old is he? 27, whatever his age is. I feel like he's aged more than like any athlete I can recall. I mean, it reminds me of Ben Simmons. He was great one day and just not the next. I just think that for a guy who was relied on his athleticism, which made him so special, in my opinion, was how tough he was, he was a great runner. Now I think he's pedestrian athletically. And again, when you take someone like him, Jeff, in my opinion, doesn't make me right. I'm smart enough to know that. But I think that was his superpower, was his ability to run, to be tough, break tackles, and I don't think he's that kind of player anymore. And when you have a guy who I thought was an elite quarterback who's now, in my opinion, closer to average. Even I that to me is the key, Jeff. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback, which was he played at that level for legit 3 years in a row. I don't see him in that way, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
Well, I don't know if you hope you're wrong if you're putting a bunch of money on the under, right?
Oh, I mean, look, I'm not a hater, Jeff. I'm not a hater. I mean, I'm really not. I'm a Philadelphia fan. I always root for Philly. I always will. And look, I'm going to win more bets than I lose. So if this is one I lose, I hope this is one of the ones I do lose. Okay. I always admit when I'm wrong in life. I'm not one of those guys like, oh, I'm right. Trust me, I'm wrong a zillion times, and I will always admit when I am wrong. I'll be the first person to admit it. I always try to learn. Always try to be better because I always try to get more information. But I do think that this Eagles team, Jeff. Um, I think we're going to see some real slippage next year. That's just my opinion. I think Dallas will be better. I think Washington will be better. I think the Giants will be far better. And we've seen the Eagles in the past, Jeff, go 5-1. Usually a lot of times in this division, right? Because you'd say, okay, you've just seemed like this division's been kind of trashy, but I think Dallas is actually going to be good next year. I think the Giants are going to be good. Jaden Daniels being healthy next year. The Washington should obviously be improved. Again, I think the Eagles win 3 or less games in the division. That's a huge thing right off the top. The schedule was difficult. Again, I'm going to say I think the Eagles finish 6-11, 7-10. 10.5 to me is going to be, if not my biggest bet, one of my biggest 3.
I'm taking the Eagles over. I mean, I do. I like the Eagles, and I think this window to win is wide open right now. And I think, and as well as anybody, the domino effect when your offensive line is a mess, and their offensive line guys were really banged up. They had a lot of issues last year. That was a mess. So the run game was an issue. They couldn't run it as well. Jalen couldn't throw it as well. And, listen, guys have talked about it. I mean, Jeff Hafley, the new Dolphins coach, talked about bringing on Kevin Patullo as their passing game coordinator. He said he was blown away. He was brilliant. And I get it. There's a difference between being brilliant and being able to get everyone to perform in this and that. But maybe Kevin Patullo is the fault guy, and it really wasn't his fault. Maybe it was going back to the offensive line. My point in all of this is that I think the Eagles are going to be better next year because and I could be wrong. None of us know, right?
Look, that's why we're talking, right? But you're obviously a smart guy, and you see the practices. You're an informed person. Your opinion, with all due respect to the world, probably respect your opinion more than most people for sure, because you are informed and you do follow it. And you do know what's going on. So actually, when I hear, listen, I always try to learn from people that may know more than me. But Jeff, I guess I'm just gonna. It comes down to this, right? Either you believe or you don't believe. And in Jalen Hurts right now, and again, I will gladly take a yolk, crack the egg over my head, and have egg over my face. I think we've seen, in my opinion, the last of the elite Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts had a 3-year stretch there, Jeff. I don't think you would disagree, where if he wasn't top 5 player, I think he was pretty damn close. Okay, I thought he was great, and I gave him. This is a guy giving him compliments. I thought Jalen Hurts was really, really, really good, and the Jalen Hurts I saw this year to me was, I don't want to say bad, but I'm going to say certainly nowhere close to elite. And I think we saw that he couldn't carry the team like he has in the past. And I think if you have more of a pedestrian average quarterback versus a top 5 quarterback, Jeff, I think it's going to show in the standings. That's just my opinion, but we'll see how it plays out, obviously.
Yeah, and you talk about those future bets on the Eagles for next season. Is it too early to tell how people feel and where the money's going? Is it too early to tell on that?
Yes, Jeff, it's definitely too early to tell because there's something called liquidity. What's liquidity mean? Like, let's take Bet Parx, right? Right now, what's today? March 1st, February 28th, whatever it is. They maybe want to take, let's just say, I'm throwing a number out there, Jeff, $500 on an Eagles season win bet, okay? Right now, today, on February 28th, okay? But come on, July 15th or August 15th, when it's closer to the season, that same $500, they maybe want to take $5,000, right? Because there's not as much confidence today in those numbers they're posting, because what's going to happen is sharp people are going to be betting into these numbers, okay? And as these numbers get bet into, any quote-unquote mistake that is made will be eliminated. come, like, let's say closer to August and September, closer to the season starting. My opinion is, Jeff, right now, and write this down. We'll, when I enjoy doing these shows with you. I will say come when we're like mid-August, late August. Right now, the Eagles are 10.5 under 125. I will say the Eagles will either be 10.5 under minus 150 or more, or it'll even be down to 9.5. But let's see if I'm right. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm shocked to hear that today, especially being that you're saying you're pounding the under. Wow.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk quickly about the Sixers. When you look at
Yeah.
the Sixers team, they have a big game tomorrow. Obviously, the Joel Embiid situation here, we're back in the same cycle of he's in, he's out, and so when you look at the Sixers, from the gambling perspective, from the betting, the wagering perspective, are the Sixers legit contenders? How would you play the Sixers as far as you talking about making a NBA Finals run?
Yeah, Jeff, listen, I think you said it last time. Joel Embiid and I we talked last time, and I agree with you. Like, I would just wash my hands of it and just, the soap opera, at some point, and they're saying in life, and like whether it's a marriage or whatever, you say the relationship has run its course. You've heard that, I'm sure, before. To me, the Joel Embiid relationship has run its course. It was a great relationship. Doesn't just because it didn't end in the title doesn't mean it wasn't great. It was a great relationship, but to me, it's run its course. I would let someone else deal with the saga. Okay. And let's just be honest, Jeff. I mean, this is what he is now at this point. It's like, it's like you never know. It's like weather in a tropical island. You don't know if it's going to rain, if it's going to be sunny. You just never know. And I always like to deal with uncertainties when I'm gambling. To me, the definition of uncertainty is Joel Embiid. I mean, I couldn't even think of a more uncertain.
So you wouldn't touch it? Like, I mean, my point is, would you just not touch like the
Well,
Sixers?
to me, the Sixers are a high variance team. I will say this, Jeff. Like, they're the kind of team that, to me, if you told me they were to make a run because Embiid was healthy, I wouldn't laugh you out of the building. I really wouldn't. I actually think the team actually has talent, and if Embiid was healthy, yeah, I think they could make a run. But for me to count on that, no way, Jose.
All right, so give me some of your Brad's best bets for this weekend. Obviously, some big college basketball going on, including Villanova tonight, taking on ranked St. John's. Villanova, they are underdogs tonight, but they've been playing good basketball. They've faced some tough teams. So how do you like this game and some other games out there?
Jeff, you nailed it. Look, this is my best game of the card. I took plus 8.5, laying $1.21 on the Parx site. Jeff, I don't get this line. I do not get this line. I on a power ratings, I maybe have St. John's maybe 1.5 better than Villanova. So even if I want to give them like freaking 3.5, 4 points for home court, maybe I can get the 5.5 at most. At most. I think there's insane value taking Villanova here, and I will not be surprised, Jeff, if Villanova wins the game outright. I say the game's very, very close. I think Villanova is just as good of a team, and I think this line is ridiculous. We saw St. John's win 13 in a row. I get it, but they kind of got their comeuppance against UConn. They lost by like 70 the night after that big 13-game winning streak. They missed like 27 straight shots because this has been the theme under Pitino. Offensively, they're just not a great team, St. John's. I think this game is very, very tight, Jeff. Love Villanova in this spot. I think it's a 50-50 game. Give me the 8.5.
And what are some other Brad's best bets? You can give us some great some odds, some things that you really like today and, of course, this weekend.
Well, Jeff, I'll give you another game. This one's a little more scary because I just don't try. Again, they're kind of the Joel. Well, actually, ironically, he went to this college, but Joel Embiid went to Kansas, and Kansas to me is another one of those teams. Jeff, it's hard to trust them, but 9.5 points I thought was a little bit too high against Arizona. Is annoying as they are with the saga every single time with Peterson. Is he playing? Is he not playing? Will he play 20 minutes? Will he play 5 minutes? Will he play 30 minutes? But I thought that line was a tick too high, and I do think that Kansas getting that many points can hang with Arizona because it's a big game. I think they'll be up for it. I think we'll get motivated Kansas. I would say that's another game that I actually like, Jeff. I think that line was a tick too high. And then look, I'm going to give you, like, Jeff, some baseball futures, if that's okay.
Sure, please go
Some
ahead.
teams I think are undervalued. Pittsburgh Pirates, Jeff, I think have a chance to be a flat out good team. This has been a team that's been bad since 1846, it seems like, right? But you know what? I mean, they added a lot of legitimate talent in the offseason, and they have the most hyped prospects since Mike Trout and Connor Griffin. I think the Pirates are a team that Jeff, I bet this team at 120 to 1 to win the pennant, 15 to 1 to win the division, 5 to 1 to make the playoffs, 7 to 1 to have more wins than the Phillies, over 73 wins. I've bet in this team every single way possible. That's kind of my all-in team. And another team I think is going to be a lot worse than maybe you're used to being is the St. Louis Cardinals, Jeff. Cardinals purposely trying to lose or rebuild. Gotten rid of all their good players. They have really nothing there. Over-under actually opened at 74.5, which is insane, down to 69.5. But I think this team, Jeff, is more of like a 62, 63 win team. I think the Cardinals are going to struggle this year pretty badly.
All right, Brad Feinberg. Great follow at Brad's Best Bets. We appreciate the gambling insight today, and you liked
Jeff,
Villanova tonight. Yeah, great seeing you. Drive safely wherever you're headed.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Brad Feinberg joining us here on Bet Parx Saturday from the Sportsbook at Parx Casino. Let's go right from guest to guest. Let's bring in Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. Does a great job covering the NFL. Spent years covering the Eagles. Covers the NFL now at a national level. He was in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. Rob Maaddi from the AP Associated Press joining us here on Bet Parx Saturday. What's happening, Rob?
What's up, Jeff? How are you, buddy?
Good to see you. So you're in Indianapolis. Obviously, a lot of buzz surrounding the birds out there and all this A.J. Brown nonsense. And at the start of the show, I was getting into heavily about everyone says that they want A.J. Brown back. A.J. Brown loves Philly, says he wants to be back. I don't know where it's coming out that A.J. Brown it's a foregone conclusion. What is your feel being out there in Indy at the Combine, talking to a lot of people, all your sources, everyone you talk to, hearing Howie and Nick and even A.J. talk back at the Super Bowl? Where do you think this thing falls? Do you think A.J. Brown is a Philadelphia Eagle next year?
Jeff, when there was all this talk during the season about AJ potentially being moved before the trade deadline, I thought that was nonsense. I didn't think that was a possibility, and obviously we saw how that played out. The Eagles kept them. I didn't think that this was the Super Bowl champions were going to try and defend their Super Bowl title without their top player or their top wide receiver, and they kept them. And we know how the season played out. They didn't win. They were bounced out of the playoffs. Things have changed. Things have unraveled. AJ's saying all the right things right now. Howie and Nick, however, have both said how much they love having him, and Howie continues to repeat what he should be saying is, we're trying to get better. We want to have great players on the team. You don't get better by subtracting great players. I think the feeling and what I got in talking to a lot of people around the league in Indy, though, is that the Eagles are going to move on from A.J. Brown. Not that they're actively pursuing a trade.
But they're just pumping him up. Like, they're essentially pumping him up out there. And it's like,
hey. I think, Jeff, when you hear Howie say or fall short of right, when Nick falls short of guaranteeing, when Howie says we're going to listen to anything, like that's what you do as a team, right? We listen to offers. There's nobody who's untouchable. There's no untradeable players in the world. You would always, it's in your best interest to listen to that. I think the feeling around the league is a lot of people believe that maybe the damage has been done. Not that the relationship is deteriorated to the point where the Eagles want to desperately move on from AJ and say, oh, we'll take whatever. They're not taking a 5th-round pick. They're not taking a 6th-round pick. They're not cutting AJ Brown. I don't see this as a Deshaun Jackson scenario from all those years back, right? I think the Eagles are going to wait and listen. Hey, the New England Patriots may feel that they're a wide receiver one away from winning the Super Bowl as opposed to getting there. There's a relationship between Mike Vrabel and A.J. Brown. Mike Vrabel was asked about A.J. He answered honestly, said there's a relationship, a mentor-type relationship with him, coach, mentor, player, that kind of thing where they text each other. He's proud of him, all that stuff. It's not he's tampering. He's just answering a question. There's that relationship. I feel AJ could be to Josh Allen what Donovan McNabb was, what T.O. was to Donovan McNabb way back in 2004. Like, Josh Allen needs that player to get over the hump, right? To get to a Super Bowl. T.O. was that for Donovan after all those years of missed opportunities and playoff frustration, same that Josh has gone through. The Bills are not opposed to trading for somebody who may have some kind of, I would never say about AJ there's character concerns. I think he's what we know to be of wide receivers. They want the ball. They're considered the divas of the NFL. So to answer, to answer your question, do I think he's going to be? I think it's more likely than not that he's on the Philadelphia. More likely that he's traded than he is back.
Yeah, it's interesting because I go the other way on it, and I understand, and I'm like, okay, I'm not trying not to read into it too much and taking things for face value, as opposed to the notion that they're just trying to pump him up and things like that, because inherently they are a better team with A.J. Brown, in my opinion. And you're not going to be able to get another receiver, I don't think, that is better than A.J. Brown. And then he carries a massive cap hit when they do have a lot of guys they need to sign, not only this year, but the following year. So I just go, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And look, I get the frustration. I get the drama. But when you talk about Sean Mannion now coming in, and Sean Mannion, supposedly went to Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni during the interview process and even afterward, and says, okay, I have all these ideas on how we can get AJ the ball more involved and the motion and this and that. I mean, I'm led to believe that AJ is going to be here, and he's not some sort of, and I hate using this phrase, but some sort of cancer in the locker room. I don't think that's the case by any means. At the end of the day, the Eagles are better with one AJ Brown. And so it leads me to my next thing with Sean Mannion coming in here. What do you know about Sean Mannion, covering the NFL a very long time, doing it at the national level? Everyone has said this guy is brilliant, and he's going to tweak the offense, make more motion, and just really disguise things better for defenses. What do you think this offense is going to look like with Sean Mannion, and what do you know about the Eagles' new offensive coordinator?
And just to wrap up real quickly on AJ, they've won a Super Bowl with AJ Brown, so it's not like you said, he's definitely not they've won a Super Bowl and gone to another one with AJ, and I think you can do that if you continue the relationship. Sean Mannion's been was a backup quarterback for a long time in the NFL. And I think that kind of lends itself, Jeff, to that offensive coordinator position, that role, because you've got to be a little bit more analytical as a backup quarterback. You've always got to be prepared. You've got to be ready to step in, and you don't even get that opportunity, but you've got to study and know the ins and outs of the scheme. And he's been with a lot of teams. He's been with a lot of coaches. He's from that Sean McVay type, Kyle Shanahan offensive mindset, more play action, more pre-snap motion, things that we've talked about the Eagles not employing for years that he can bring to this offense. And I think it sets up for an opportunity where Jalen could potentially thrive in this offense. And of course, it's going to have to start up front, Jeff. I think if the offensive line, and to me, that's the biggest question mark, is can this offensive line bounce back from where they were last year? Because much of the issues with the Eagles offense was their inability to run the football. And a lot of that, when you don't have Lane, we all know what Lane Johnson means to this team. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, though I don't know what a first ballot Hall of Famer is anymore because Bill Belichick wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but like let's cut to the chase on that one. I mean, the Bill Belichick thing, I mean, it's kind of like punishment for being a jerk. I mean,
well, and the way the voting is set up now, right? The way they have it, and it's the percentage, and only X amount can get in, and all that. It's just a whole mess.
And and you can't forget about the cheat. Like I can't forget about the cheating stuff. I mean, I just can't. And so
it's how much stock you put into. First of all, to me, the Deflategate was just absolute nonsense. That was not cheating. Deflategate was there. There was nothing there. Science proves how footballs just deflate in cold air. I was at that game. I saw. I was reporting on some of the thing and saw some of the information that was given that I didn't report because I knew better and didn't, and others did report it, and it turned out to be inaccurate. Spygate's another situation. Other teams did it; they just weren't caught.
Right. Yeah. But it's so much so, and the famous story that the Eagles preparing for that Super Bowl with Nick Foles they have to. They're putting on a whole like Ocean's 11 type. As we're in a casino talking about this, putting up a whole like elaborate scheme to to fool potentially the Patriots if they somehow are spying. And so you go, like, that's how elaborate the Eagles are having a fake walkthrough at the stadium, and the real Philly special and everything else that they're practicing and running is going on in a ballroom at their hotel. I mean, to go to that elaborate level, it's been out there for years that the Patriots were, doing things they weren't supposed to do. In any event, we are like way off topic of everything like we're getting to, but do you think the Eagles are a better team? Will be a better team with Sean Mannion? And I know it's a tough question to answer, and everyone's guessing. But is your belief that they don't get the Mike McDaniel, they don't get the the sexy offensive coordinator hire? Do you think they're a better team with Sean Mannion, that this can be a simple enough fix?
Mike McDaniel in Philly would have been just hilarious to watch. Like those news conferences would have been absolutely must-watch news conferences.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been a great fit. Like,
I don't necessarily think it would have been a great fit. Just Mike, knowing Mike McDaniel, having covered him, seeing his personality would no way have worked in Philly. I like Sean Mannion, the fit in Philly. Like a lot of talk about the Eagles didn't get this guy, didn't get that guy. They interviewed 17 guys. It came down to, and there were 7 that they interviewed a second time. And there's a lot that goes into it, right? And oftentimes in Philly, Jeff, you've been around long enough to where the guy that fans didn't want, Charlie Manuel over Jim Leland, won a World Series. Doug Peterson, nobody wanted Doug Peterson, won a Super Bowl. Hey, Nick Sirianni was
who was Nick Sirianni, right? You don't know who he is.
They didn't want him the year they won the Super Bowl after the Browns game in week 3, week 4, whatever it was, where he was just doing a thing with the fans. And they end up having success. So I think that could happen here with Sean Mannion. But it goes back to what we were saying and what I was talking about with Lane Johnson. And if they need the offensive line to be healthy and to be stout. And without Jeff Stoutland, I don't know how great they're going to be up front. And to me, that's going to be the biggest part of this offseason is how can they rework that offensive line? How good can they be to create running lanes for Saquon Barkley, to give Jalen Hurts time to get the ball to Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, or whoever replaces him, Dallas Goedert, or whoever replaces him, because they might be in a position where they got a new tight end too as well. I think Saquon's got plenty of just ability to run if he can get some openings, and it goes beyond Sean Mannion creating and scheming and open that up. You've got to have the offensive line to block. So no matter what you do, play action, pre-snap, fool the defense, if the guys up front can't get the job done, they'll struggle. And I got to believe in Howie at this point. He's earned the benefit of the doubt that I think Howie's going to be able to put that team together, rework that offensive line, and make sure they're ready to go.
At the Super Bowl, we had Omar Ruiz from NFL Network on, and I asked him this question. I'll ask you this. Someone that has covered the team and these teams a long time, that has covered the NFL a long time, we live in a bubble in Philadelphia, and it's always white hot around the Eagles and the different teams and things going on. The national perspective, the national perception of the Philadelphia Eagles, is it that dramatic? Is there that much drama going on from the outside with the Eagles, or is it just a local thing? Do you think do people view the Eagles as this highly dramatic situation that's, I don't want to say toxic, I think that's too strong, but do you think there's a lot of drama going on with Philadelphia, or it's just, hey, they had a not as great of a season as expected, and it is what it is, and they're tweaking it and moving on? What is the national perspective of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Jeff, I don't think I've ever seen a team in any sport, and now that I've been around for 32 NFL teams and get to see that a little bit more on a daily basis, that's covered or that's scrutinized like Philly does with the Eagles and magnifies like news conferences. The Seattle Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. Mike McDonald at the podium at Indy had maybe 8 reporters. Like, I was just blown away. There are more media who cover Vic Fangio's news conference or come in and speak to the backup linebacker at an Eagles training
or
camp.
Michael Clay, right? Like the special teams coordinator.
Then I see at the combine for the Super Bowl champion head coach who gets his first opportunity to speak just 2 weeks after winning the Super Bowl. So I think everything is intensified and magnified in Philly. I think more people from the and yeah, listen, we live in an age where there's a lot of hot takes and a lot of nonsense, and there were a lot of people who were jumping on the criticism of Nick Sirianni the year they won the Super Bowl. If you go back to, I forget who the analyst was, they were calling him a fool, they were calling him a clown, and he certainly showed them, and he led his team to a Lombardi trophy. So there are some national media folks who kind of ride that hype train and get on because everybody sees it now on social media. But the overall perception of the Eagles and the organization, top-notch, first-class organization. Guys want to play there. You believe in the general manager. You believe in the owner's commitment to wanting to win. Now, sometimes some things happen like the fans in Patullo. That may get people's attention, right? And I think when they interview 17 different offensive coordinators, I do believe that there were some, and I spoke to some agents, that was a turnoff for some guys. But that's not every case. That's not every situation. And when you look at the overall team and the organization, winning team, passionate fan base, tremendous talent, and opportunity to be right back in the middle of the Super Bowl this year.
Spending time at the Combine in Indianapolis, did you get a sense of who the Eagles were really just honing in on, really taking a deep dive on? Were any of the prospects and it's maybe too early to tell, but did you get a sense that the Eagles were really looking at these positions or these players? I know they have lots of meetings and they have eyes on everybody to help get to a point where they can stack their board for the NFL draft. But any sense there from the Eagles' perspective at maybe who they were eyeing, certain positions, certain players, things like that?
A little too early, Jeff, but just knowing the Eagles, right? Knowing Howie Roseman and what he values, it's the trenches, it's the edge rushers. It's the guys in the middle of that defensive line. It's the offensive linemen. You've got to bolster. Like Lane Johnson's coming back, but how much more does he have left?
And all the injuries, last year with the whole line, right?
So it would shock me if I saw some draft models, some people, and I got to make my mock draft next week, first one, and keep revising it and all that stuff. And I saw some people going, all right, they're going to go. Maybe the Eagles are going to go tight end. I'd be absolutely stunned. And that's even if they lose Dallas Goedert. To me, you got to look at the Eagles right now and bolstering that defensive line. Getting the last two teams who won the Super Bowl, the Eagles last 2 years ago and the Seahawks, they dominated up front. They won because they were getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. They were getting pressure, the Seahawks, on Drake May. That's what they were able to do. And the Eagles have to figure that out, make sure they've got somebody and they've got some talent from within. They've also got some free agents. Brandon Graham wants to come back, but we know what BG is at this point in his career. Great locker room guy, great rotational guy. He's not going to get you 10, 12, 15 sacks. Phillips is a free agent. Is he going to come back? So I think they look at edge rusher. I think they look at offensive line, maybe more so offensive line at this point.
All right, Rob Maaddi, we appreciate the insight. Did a great job covering the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. And, of course, he's a great follow on X. Check him out. Does great interviews, great reporting, as always. We appreciate the time here on Bet Parx Saturday. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it, man. Keep up the great work.
All right, you too. Check out Rob Maaddi. Great follow, as I said, on X. And check him out on social media. He does a great job with interviews, talking to lots of different people around the NFL, around the league. Always good information and posts from Rob Maaddi. All right, here on Bet Parx Saturday, let's talk about Parx Casino and the app. It is time to play. Join me now on the Bet Parx Online Casino and Sportsbook app, where there's always another way to win. Live betting is better on the Bet Parx app. Bet while you can watch all the action. Bet player performances. Bet games by quarters even, okay? You can do that and much more right now. New casino users up to $1,000 bonus back in the first 24 hours. Plus get 250 bonus spins on Good Heavens or Little Demon Mega Collect Little Demon Mega Collectum over the course of 10 consecutive days. Yes, 250 bonus spins. Make your downtime more fun. You can do it on the road. You can do it at home. You can do it from work, wherever you're at. You can also play all the casino games, all the legendary games, from slots to blackjack to craps, poker, you name it, on the Parx app. One of the best and hottest games right now is the slots game, Huff and Puff, Cash Eruption, and much more. Parx Online Casino and Sportsbook app. You can play the real casino games, as I said, for real money, blackjack, roulette, craps, much more right on your phone. It's very easy. Plus, bet on all your favorite sports and your teams. Bet Philly, the pro basketball, the hockey. There's future bets going on, like we talked about with Brad Feinberg, with the Eagles and the Phillies. Bet Parx Online Casino, Sportsbook, and app, where there's always another way to win. You must be 21 years old in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan. New users only. TCs apply. See betparx.com for details. Casino bonus. They must be wagered. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's continue this conversation on the Philadelphia Eagles and Sean Mannion. We've talked a lot with Rob and E.J. Smith on how this offense can look. As we said, Eagles GM Howie Roseman, said that Sean Mannion, talked to him about how they're going to run this system and the vision for A.J. Brown, and they expect him to be a huge part of this, assuming he doesn't get traded, and what they can do to get this offense going and how it's going to look with Jalen Hurts. And you heard Rob Maaddi talk about how it can really benefit from Jalen Hurts can really benefit from this offense under Sean Mannion, who, by the way, has never called plays. So what can we expect? It's going to be different. I think it's going to be more structured chaos, more layered, and hopefully more dangerous. There's going to be a system shift here. Mannion comes from that modern day Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay offensive tree. That means more under center, more outside zone running, more motion, more play action, more marrying the run with the pass together. Last year, the Eagles, of course, they lived in the shotgun a ton. They were spread out. They let Jalen Hurts read and react, and didn't go so well. And there was a lot of other factors in this. Let's not just blame Kevin Patullo here. But, going on here, this could be more sequenced, more choreographed, more setting up defenses to fool the defenses. And so the defenses don't know what's coming. And we've heard things come out over the last year that the Eagles were predictable. Sean Mannion hopefully will make this Eagles offense not predictable for the defense. You have to sit and go, okay, we're going to beat us one-on-one, or we're going to manipulate you. It's hard to talk. What are you going to do here with this offense? The fascinating part here is that hopefully this could actually simplify things for Jalen Hurts. Despite them presenting potential chaos in front of the defense, does this simplify things for Jalen Hurts? Under center play action, cuts the field potentially in half. Bootlegs, motion. What does it do for the coverage? That means faster decisions, cleaner throwing windows, more rhythm. That can be a really good thing. And let's be honest, when Hurts is decisive and he's on schedule, he's better. He's been elite. I think he's going to have an elite season. Can Sean Mannion get it out of him? There's some question marks. He's never called plays. This is a big promotion for him. And you're doing it under the microscope in Philadelphia. I heard Rob Maaddi talk about that the Eagles are scrutinized every syllable that is said at a press conference, okay? Not even a sentence. Syllables are dissected and broken down and criticized. So the Eagles, they have to get Jalen Hurts' footwork potentially better. And so there's been some talk that Sean Mannion's going to work with Jalen Hurts in his footwork, how he can be sharper. So I think that's going to benefit Jalen Hurts. And I also think the run game evolution, obviously the offensive line is going to dictate a lot of stuff here. But instead of just having your quarterback at all on his shoulders here, put it back on Saquon. And that starts up front, okay? That starts with the line, moving laterally, stretching the defenses horizontally, setting up the bootlegs, opening up bigger lanes, setting up deep routes for A.J. Brown, which will help the run game. So I do think there's a lot of things here that this Eagles offense can do. And whether you have Dallas Goedert back or not, there's a lot that can open up this offense. And even if it's just a little bit, this offense should be better with a fresh mind, with fresh eyes in here. So the Eagles aren't predictable. And look, as Rob said, the Eagles interviewed about 17 candidates. What were they looking for? What took them so long? Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni talked about it at the Combine. Just behind the scenes of those interviews and those meetings, what they were looking for, what they found in Sean Mannion, and how this offense can look next season. Here's what Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni said.
Yeah, you always want to, make sure that when you're on the verge of hiring somebody or in a final evaluation portion, you're bringing a couple guys back in. You want to reach out to different guys and guys that they've worked with, guys that they've played with, guys that they've coached. That's what you would expect. That's what I do for you. And you go through a job interview. It's very similar. And so you're looking for common themes. And it was a common theme of everyone spoke very similar about Sean. And you can imagine that those were glowing, reviews, which is one of the reasons. Obviously, we hired him because we thought he was, we got to the phone call situations where we're kind of going through that, and everyone had great things to say about him, the person he is, the coach he is, the football mind that he is, and so really excited about that.
I think the more people you interview, just like when you go through this, when you watch a lot of players, it's easy to compare all those guys, and so for us, casting a wide net, being able to hear everyone's vision, have them articulate to us how it would fit our players, because it's always about our players. With Sean, it was just the system of play that he wanted to run, how he's going to articulate it, how he was going to do that with all of our players was really exciting. I think he's got a tremendous future. And we got to help him by bringing good players.
Yeah, I mean, that you go through the process of the interview, and you have different questions that you ask them to be able to take themselves through it. Like we don't leave anything to chance. Like we're going to go through our process, and hey, how are you going to call this situation? How are you thinking about this situation? All right, what you ask them game plan scenarios from games that they've been around. So. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Obviously I won't get into every way that I do that in an interview, but you go through a process if I'm hiring a wide receiver coach, if I'm hiring a coordinator, whatever that is, you go through a process to see if you feel like they're going to be good at doing that personal job.
Yeah, obviously we have our way of interviewing people. We've interviewed coordinators here a little bit over the last couple of years. Been fortunate to have success and guys leave, and obviously made some decisions here that put us in position to interview some coordinators, and feel like we have a really good process led by Coach Sirianni on the offense coordinator. He'd probably be the right person to ask the question about.
Again, there will be some things that has there's a lot of steps to take place before we know exactly what version of this offense is going to be. But obviously, Sean comes from a family of coaches and things that he's done that we really respect, that we know is tough to defend. We know we've done a lot of good things here as well, as far as some of the things we've done that's hard to defend. So being able to sprinkle some of that in. And a lot will be, you got to go through the process with your players to get to all those answers again. And you're constantly going to try to get to it, get to where you will be by the end of the season. But really, it's always important at the end of the day that we're able to run the football, be able to do play action off of that, play physical, play with relentless effort, play with great detail, play together. Those will be all things that we're looking to do.
Yeah, so look, none of us were in those meetings with Sean Mannion or the other offensive coordinator candidates, but the Eagles along the way have made really good hires. They have. From head coaches to coordinators to the lower level position coaches, they've always had a really good coaching staff under Jeffrey Lurie. They just have. So I don't want to read into this and go, okay, Mannion's not the sexy hire and this and that. Are there concerns? Do you know this is going to be a great fit and work out? But I agree with what Rob Maaddi said moments ago, which is I don't think Mike McDaniel, for as brilliant as he is that would have been a great fit here. I just don't. I think that could have been disastrous. You don't need that here. And so bring in the guy that the Eagles feel that they were essentially blown away with, and that is Sean Mannion. And let's see how this goes. And can they get this offense going with a fresh set of eyes, some fresh ideas? We saw with Kellen Moore a few years ago. And obviously at that point, Kellen Moore was a little more established in the coaching circles. But from what everybody says, that Sean Mannion is a very smart guy. He's brilliant. And we've heard that about Kevin Patullo, and it didn't work out. So, look, we don't know how any of this is going to work out here, but you have to have a little bit of faith. And at this point, the Eagles have been to how many Super Bowls since 2017? They've won how many since 2017? So you go, okay, I do believe that the Eagles have brought in somebody, and I'm trusting this. I'm taking that leap of faith, and I'm trusting the Birds that they figured this out, that they're going to have more motion. They're going to have more play action. They're going to be more under center. There's going to be more sequencing, and that's going to benefit Jalen Hurts. It's going to benefit Saquon Barkley, and that's going to benefit A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I think it's going to be that better. And anyone you talk to, anyone that is asked about Sean Mannion, they say he's brilliant. And so let's listen to what was said at the NFL Combine this week about Sean Mannion. I think guys love him.
Not shocked that it's happened that fast because of the way he works. He's a tireless worker, exceptionally bright. Usually when you bring in a young, really talented coach like that, you're kind of hoping to have him for a number of years, and that's unfortunate for us. But he's going to do a great job, and he's the ability to see the game through a quarterback's eyes because of his playing career, coming from a coaching family. I mean, there's just a lot to like.
Unbelievable person, great friend, highly intelligent, really good with the players. What he did with Jordan, all the extra time he put in with them, you could just see that it was going to happen sooner than later, and not surprised at all. And he'll have a really, really bright future, a guy who played the position, studied the game. I'll be rooting for him because he's one of the really good guys in this league.
Sean was incredible. I go back to, he was our third quarterback at the time, and we went through, my job, was to make sure all of our quarterbacks were prepared, and I call it the bullpen, but, you don't get all the throws that the first quarterback does, but Sean wanted to make sure he got all the throws, and then he wanted to make sure he put himself in the most impossible physical positions to try to get the throw done. I learned so much in our times. Different progressions, different types of drills he forced himself into were things that I took with me as I continue to coach quarterbacks over the last couple of years. But brilliant, asks the right questions, catches the loopholes in protections and different things like that. A really sharp guy and a great human, and I really enjoyed my time with him.
All right, so there you have it. And so Carolina Panthers head coach Dave Canales was his position coach when he was a quarterback with the Seattle Seahawks. And so he was in those rooms. We've heard Nick Foles talk about he's been in these rooms with Sean Mannion when he was a backup quarterback with the St. Louis Rams. And so everybody says the guy is brilliant. And so I trust it. Now, are we over the top? Like, okay, we got the Mike McDaniel or the Brian Dable, the brilliant mind guy that has, been an NFL head coach or has been successful in those positions? No. But that doesn't mean this is a bad fit. And that doesn't mean this cannot be a great fit. The Eagles have made good coaching hires. I do believe that. And I think it's also unfair to pin all of the issues last year on Kevin Patullo, because Patullo, by all accounts, was a brilliant guy, and he was able to, as a passing game coordinator, read different defenses and be able to have a lot of success with the Eagles. Remember, won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, right? So you have to remember that just because it didn't work out, just because they had a bad year, to pin that all on Patullo, not fair. And he's become the face of it. He's become the fall guy. I don't think it's fair. And I think anyone you ask would say that, yeah, it's not all his fault. There are a lot of other things. And if you know anything about football, just the way it goes, it all starts up front. And the Eagles had a lot of issues up front. You go back to that Bills game. They scored nothing in the second half. The offensive line was getting hammered, was getting beat every which way. And so a lot of it has to do with that. And so, okay, now maybe Patullo, just as brilliant and smart as he is and as well as he sees the game, could not figure it out. Maybe Sean Mannion will. But don't discredit Kevin Patullo. In fact, and I feel bad that people were shocked by this, but Patullo was hired by the Miami Dolphins to be their passing game coordinator, and their new head coach, Jeff Hafley, says he was blown away by Kevin Patullo. And I know Eagles fans don't want to hear that or may think they're surprised, but listen to how just high regard that the Miami Dolphins' new head coach has for Kevin Patullo. Listen to this.
When I interviewed him, I was blown away. The knowledge that he has, the football experience that he has, what he did for that entire organization. Don't forget, he won a Super Bowl. And behind the scenes, what he did with that offense and with that whole team and listening to him talk and his football knowledge, and not just about offense, but about game management, about situational football. I got off the Zoom and I said to Bobby, I said, we got to try to hire this guy. And he had other opportunities and other options. I think he's going to be a huge asset to what we do. And I think often it's unfair to judge anybody off of one single year.
That last thing that Jeff Hafley said is so true, and I think Eagles fans have to remember that. To judge Patullo on one season, not fair. And I know it's in the past and it's over, but I say all of this to say, and I play all of that to say, just give it a second, give it a beat. At this point, the Eagles have earned enough trust, I believe. You got to trust the process, and I hate pulling the old Sixers slogan out, but I do believe that Howie Roseman and this team has earned enough trust, and they've had enough success over the last 20-plus years, 25, 26 years, to say, okay. And especially since 17, they have rebuilt this team multiple times and have won. And what they did with Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. So I believe that they know better than we do. We're not in those meetings. We're not in those rooms. They have access to every coach and every player. They talk to everybody. They know what's going on. Now, the one thing at the Combine that I felt like nobody was talking about, which I find interesting because remember last year at the Combine and at the owners' meetings and everything else, everybody was hot to trot about pushing the tush push out of football. Fast forward to this year, all this week, you didn't hear anything about the tush push. Suddenly, the Eagles, so-called most hated play, nobody could give two you-know-whats about. The owners debated it last year. The coaches complained about it. Anonymous executives were whispering about the competitive integrity, and the league office was dissecting it, and, so-called they wanted it out of the game. There were formal proposals and unofficial lobbying efforts and long meetings that were stretched for hours over trying to find a way to get rid of the tush push. People believed it was not a quarterback sneak, but more of a rugby play, which Jordan Mailata, who grew up playing rugby, was like, it's not a rugby play. This year, crickets. There was nothing. And that's not to say, that an effort won't be made to push it out again. But there's been no major proposal, no emergency debate, no urgent calls to get rid of the Eagles' tush push. There's been really no outrage, and we've heard people say, here and there that that's the most hated play in the game. I think Aaron Rodgers said that during the Steelers playoff run, that everybody hates the tush push. But why? Why is this Eagles tush push? There's no push to get it out right now. Last year, the Green Bay Packers were trying to ban it. And I think that came down from the league that, okay, they want the Packers to get rid of it. We'll help you with this situation if you make a push here. But the Bills were running the heck out of it. Sean McDermott with the Bills last year was like, didn't like it, yet he would run it with Josh Allen. Now, the Eagles were not as successful with it. I would think that if the Eagles had this monster season and they made another Super Bowl run and the tush push was as effective, that there would be a bigger outrage over the tush push. But they don't need to bring in Jason Kelce again to sit in front of the owners and say why it's not a dangerous play and everything else like that. There's been nothing about the tush push. I just feel like the NFL doesn't like it. And then the fact that the Eagles were not as successful with it this year, they go, okay, fine. Keep it in. They're not as good at it. Teams have figured out perhaps how to stop it a little bit better. And the Eagles, of course, they weren't as healthy offensively at the line, and that played a big part of it. But there's been like no buzz about this, which I think is a good thing, because I still think the Eagles, you look at what Jalen Hurts can squat and what he can bench, and you go, he can still, run that play, which I think is an almost guaranteed first down, even though they weren't as successful with it. But the sense of urgency has just vanished with that play. Why? Because maybe it's not automatic anymore. Maybe the NFL is like, we can't have this play that just does not look good, dominating the game and getting these cheap yards. I don't think it's cheap. You talk to Kelsey or Cam Jurgens or Jalen Hurts, it's a hard play to run. It's a physically demanding hard play to run. And we haven't seen this big outrage of injuries and all these guys, the league talks about, there were people have said in the league that, okay, it leads to injury. We haven't heard any of that. We haven't seen any of that. I mean, the Detroit Lions famously attacked it differently, collapsing the edges instead of ramming the middle. Teams, they went after the pushers. They attacked the mesh. They treated it like a turnover opportunity instead of a pile. And we've seen the Eagles run plays off that, which opens up a can of worms for the Eagles, which I think is a good thing. But it is funny how it works, that it's not even a topic of conversation. And so much so, Sean Payton, the Denver Broncos head coach, admitted at the Combine this week that if the play ever gets removed, it wouldn't be because of safety and the health and safety of the players, because he doesn't think it's a dangerous play, that the league has already acknowledged that there were no injuries tied to it in 2024. Sean Payton was very blunt about this. He just went, if it goes away, it'll be because the NFL doesn't like it, which is the strongest part of all of this, that the NFL just doesn't like the play. Listen to Sean Payton and some of the chatter on the Eagles tush push at the Combine. I found this really interesting.
I don't think the push sneak, look, I think if that ever goes away, it's not a health and safety thing, right? We discussed that last year for 2 hours, and we just adopted 1,000 more kick returns. Which play do you think is more of a health risk? 1,000 more kick returns. So I think if we choose to ever move on from that, it won't be because of health and safety. It will just be like we don't like it, which is okay.
So what led you back to the competition committee? Like you served on it, then you did.
I like the pain. I like our league. I like talking about stuff like that. Like when I bring up that, we literally spent 2 hours on the health and safety of a QB sneak. And that same, like literally a half an hour prior, we passed a rule that allowed over 1,000 more kicks. So every once in a while your BS meter goes up. I'm passionate about the game and being involved in it.
That's all we talked about last year. And I will tell you, it felt like there was momentum going into league meetings, that it would be overturned, and then it kind of flipped, and those things happen. And, I think now we went through a year, maybe people have gotten a little bit better at defending it. Maybe they're doing it less. People aren't wanting to put their quarterbacks in those type of situations. You're seeing more variety. They line up in the tush push. They run outside. So maybe it's kind of solving itself. But we'll see. I think you got to monitor those things over time to see the trends, and that's something we'll continue to do.
Yeah, I think there's some things that teams did this year that they did a good job of being able to stop it. And we got to get back to being able to. We either have to get back to being able to be as dominant as we were at it, or we find new avenues to be able to convert on third down or in the red zone. And so that's the fun part about off season, is to be able to go through those processes. You go through them during the season as well. I think you saw us do some cool things off of it, and you still want to be able to do that. Hey, here you're doing that with your entire offense. Hey, here this play's coming. Just kidding, we're running this play, and that's what you're constantly trying to do to put seeds of doubt within the defense. And this play has that ability, and we know we have to. That it took a little bit of step back, and we got to coach it better. We got to execute it better, and looking forward to seeing where that goes in the future.
So the Eagles know they have to get better at it, but I do wonder if the Eagles were really good at it, like they have been in the past last year, would there be a bigger push? But it is just funny that a year later, everyone's just like, whatever, no big deal. I do find that interesting. And I'm not trying to make a case here that the NFL is against the Eagles. I think that's ridiculous. The Eagles are one of the best teams in the league. They're great for the NFL. All right, let's talk about the Sixers. They're facing the Celtics tomorrow. Is Embiid playing? Is he not playing? It's just been another one of these cartoony seasons with Joel Embiid. When he's on the floor, when he's so-called healthy, he's dominant. We've talked about this at nausea, that I just don't think they can win with Joel Embiid. But I did find this interesting the other night after their game. VJ Edgecombe, and I get it, he's a rookie, but I thought he was really out of line here weighing in on the Joel Embiid situation, claiming that media and reporters are saying Joel Embiid doesn't want to play, he doesn't care. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The stuff with Joel Embiid that's been out there, that has been reported, that people talk about, is the fact that really what we've talked about. Can you win with this guy? He's in and out of the lineup. It's a disruption. It's been an issue. And maybe Joel Embiid does care. I think early on in his career, there were a lot of issues. There were a lot of issues about his weight and his training and this and that. Does he love the game? I don't think Joel Embiid's trying not to play. I think he's trying to play, and I think he's learned, and he's a guy that has, I think he's growing from this, and we didn't know what to expect this season. But VJ Edgecombe, and I love VJ. I think he's going to be great for the Sixers, and I think he is just going to be the face of the franchise along with Tyrese Maxey. This backcourt's going to be amazing. And I love his work ethic. But I thought VJ's really out of line here, kind of criticizing the media, criticizing reporters on the whole Joel Embiid situation, because you haven't been here for all of this. And I know on a nightly basis, on a day-to-day basis, you see the pain that he's going through, and he's out there and he's trying to give it his all. And I get all that, and we're not in Joel's body. And I don't think anyone's questioning whether or not, Joel wants to play. I think that's where I have the issue with. So listen to VJ Edgecombe. I thought he was really out of line here, talking about that reporters and media are saying Joel Embiid doesn't want to play and he doesn't care. I thought this was a little out of line.
I think that shows a lot. That shows a lot. The media try to make it seem like he don't want to play basketball. I mean, come on. He's out there in pain, and he made a big shot at the end of the game. He barely could have raised his right hand up, But that just shows his character, too. He care about winning. It's Joel Embiid, bro. That's what we're talking about right now. So I know they try to just paint this bad picture about him, but it's not true, man. I'm going to say it here. It's not true. It's not true. He wanted to play, and he wanted to do his best for the team and what's best for him. So yeah.
Who is out there saying that he doesn't care and he doesn't want to play? I think that was just an immature attack. And I really like VJ. He's a rookie. He's a young kid. I just thought that was really out of line. Now, the Sixers, they're one of the legendary franchises in the NBA. And if you saw what Tyrese Maxey did the other night, passing Allen Iverson for the most three-pointers made in Sixers history, it did make me think either the Sixers stink as a franchise or the game has just evolved so much into the three-point game. But I thought this was crazy to me. When you look at the list of the Sixers' all-time three-point shooters, I understand Allen Iverson's on there, but for Tyrese Maxey to break the record this early in his career, and then you look at the rest of this list, okay, Iverson, fine. But Robert Covington's third? Really? Kyle Korver, okay, nice three-point shooter, but okay. Then Tobias Harris, outside of Allen Iverson, this is a ridiculous list to say these are the best three-point shooters in Sixers history. When you think about, and I know the game's evolved, and I know in the last, 20-plus years, the Sixers have not been great. They haven't got out of the second round, and I know Joel Embiid is not a sharpshooter three-point guy. But I go, really, Tyrese Maxey's your all-time three-point shooter? Don't you think this list is is a silly list. Like the list is crazy to me when you think about all the legends that have played in Philadelphia and the best Sixers players ever. Like that list is it's a terrible list. Other than Iverson, I like Maxey. I do think he's a really special player. But like, do you think of Tyrese Maxey as a 3-point stud specialist? And so I was wondering, I'm like, are the Sixers just the sad franchise? Has the game evolved that much? Is it both? Maybe it's both. Maybe it's both. But, like, come on. Robert Covington is third. Come on. What Covington did, don't get me wrong, is amazing. The player that he became and how he transformed himself into a nice player. But come on. Come on. But I will tell you, Tyrese Maxey, he's a guy that you love. He says the right things. He does the right things, the work ethic. And even he was kind of surprised that he was that close to breaking Allen Iverson's 3-point record. And so I think the team thinks the world of Maxey. I think he has elevated himself into that superstar status. And I do love what Tyrese Maxey and the Sixers said about who has become, in my opinion, the face of the franchise more than Joel Embiid. The face of this team is Tyrese Maxey breaking that record. I do believe, I really do believe that he's genuine when you listen to Tyrese Maxey. Here's Tyrese.
Yeah, man, that's a blessing, honestly. I'm just happy, man. I'm blessed. Thank God for the opportunity. I thank God for the Sixers organization for drafting me, trusting me, believing in me. Thankful to both my coaches, Doc and Nurse. They installed a lot of confidence in me. And, last to my teammates, man. Everybody, I gave a shout out to Tobias earlier. In my rookie year, he told me I was a great shooter, even though I wasn't shooting as well as I wanted to. He told me I was a great shooter. And then lastly, Joel, man, like he been on me about shooting 10 threes a game since probably my second or third year. And, I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely, once I heard about it, I wanted to do it at the crib. I think the fans are a big part of my success. I'm very thankful to all the fans and, Philadelphia. We have a special connection. And then to wear these jerseys, that's fun. AI is somebody who we've all looked up to, who I looked up to being a small guard. And to be able to pass him anything in the basketball, that's cool. And for to have my name next to his is a blessing. I didn't know what to expect. I always said I was going to make it to the NBA, and I didn't know what to expect. Honestly, like someone asked me at All-Star, did I expect to be an All-Star starter? And I was like, man, no, I just worked. I knew I would work until I can't work anymore. So that's just the mindset that I have. And I'm just appreciative of the Philly fans. Like I said, I'm appreciative of the Philly organization and both my coaches who really pushed me to become better every single day. And Doc was on me heavy early on, but he believed in me. And then when Nurse got here, he told me he believed in me. So, when you have your coaches that really believe in you, you have your players and your teammates that have your back every single night, you can't ask for anything better than that.
Surreal moment, right? In the moment, but it's not surprising. He puts in the work. He's confident. He's developing every year, and I'm super proud of him and just blessed to be alongside of him. For him, I'll speak for him. It's just good to see that it's capable of being done right in front of your eyes because it's his turn next.
Hopefully I can get to it, but credit to Tyrese, man. I say it means a lot to me, just because of obviously who he is as a person. And who he is as a player. I just sit there most days just watch him work out also. I say, man, it just means a lot.
Where are you going to keep the ball?
Where I'm going to keep it?
Yeah.
I'm going to see if my mom is going to let me keep this one. She normally takes most of my, accomplishments, but she wasn't here tonight. So, Mom, that's crazy that you didn't come to my game.
Look at that. Look at that, throwing Mom under the bus. Breaks the record. The Sixers record. 3 points made. Tyrese Maxey, the king of the three in Philly. And Mom's not getting that game ball. Come on, Tyrese. But, a little bit, giving it to Mom, not showing up. His mom and dad, they're at a lot of games. But certainly giving it to Mom there. She's not going to get that game ball. all the trophies, all the basketballs, all the souvenirs and things like that are at mom's house down in Texas. She's not getting that basketball. All right, I love it from Tyrese Maxey. Sixers Celtics tomorrow. Will Joel Embiid play? We will find out as the Sixers can hopefully make a run here in the Eastern Conference. That will do it for us on Bet Parx Saturday, live from the Sportsbook at Parx Casino in Bensalem. As always, broadcast on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. For my producer, Julia Hoff, I'm Jeff Skaversky. A special thanks to all of our guests today. EJ Smith from PHLY Sports, of course, Brad Feinberg, and Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. We talked a lot about the Eagles, and I'm sure we will talk a lot about the Birds next week here on Bet Parx Saturday. See you right here next week on Bet Parx Saturday. I'm Jeff Skaversky. Have a great day.
We all silly like the mayor.